The laugh cut through the cafe like a shard of glass. It wasn't loud at first, just a sharp, careless sound, but it was enough to make a few heads turn. The single dad froze mid-motion, his hand hovering over a chipped white mug, steam curling into his tired face. Across from him, his young daughter kept talking, unaware, her small fingers tracing circles on the tabletop as she explained something only a child could find magical. The laugh came again, louder this time, followed by a mocking voice that carried just enough cruelty to sting. "Hey man," the bully said, smirking, "you gonna spill that coffee or you just shaking like that for fun?" The cafe fell into an uncomfortable hush. And that was the moment everything began to change. The man's name was Daniel Reyes. He didn't look like someone who could intimidate anyone. Early 40s. Worn jacket. Hair just starting to gray at the temples. The kind of face you'd pass on the street without a second thought. His shoulders were slightly hunched, not from weakness, but from years of carrying more weight than most people ever noticed, responsibility, grief, and a promise he refused to break. Daniel glanced at the voice but didn't respond. He simply wrapped both hands around the mug, steady now, and gently slid it away from the edge of the table. His daughter, Lily, finally noticed the silence and looked up at him with wide, questioning eyes. "Daddy," she whispered. "I'm okay, sweetheart," Daniel said softly, offering her a small smile. "Just finish your story." The bully scoffed. He was tall, broad, dressed in expensive gym clothes that looked more for show than function. He had friends with him, 2 men who laughed on cue, feeding off his confidence. He leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the attention. "Man," the bully said, shaking his head, "kids raising kids these days. Guess that's what happens when life beats you down, huh?" Daniel didn't answer. He focused on Lily, nodding as she resumed her story, though her voice trembled now. Around them, other patrons pretended not to notice. A barista paused mid-pour. Someone near the window frowned but looked away. No one wanted trouble. Daniel had learned long ago that silence was sometimes the safest shield, but silence, he knew, didn't mean surrender. 7 years earlier, Daniel's life had been completely different. He had worn a uniform that few ever saw and fewer understood. His days had been measured in missions, not minutes. Precision. Discipline. Control. He had moved through the world like a ghost, trained to observe without being seen, to act without hesitation when the moment demanded it. He had been part of a brotherhood where trust was life and mistakes were death. Then came the call that shattered everything. His wife, Maria, had been killed by a drunk driver while Daniel was deployed overseas. Lily had been 3. Daniel had flown home to a house that felt too quiet, too empty. The man who returned was not the same one who had left. He retired soon after, turning his back on the world he once knew, trading classified missions for bedtime stories and school drop-offs. He had promised Maria, standing beside her grave, that Lily would never feel alone. That promise had cost him everything else. The bully leaned forward now, elbows on the table, voice dripping with condescension. "You hear me, man? Were you too busy playing house?" Daniel felt it then, a familiar tightening in his chest. Not anger. Not fear. Awareness. The kind that sharpened his senses, slowed his breathing, and brought the world into focus. He noticed the exits. The spacing between tables. The way the bully's friends shifted their weight. Old instincts stirred, not with violence, but with readiness. He took a slow breath and finally looked up. "I'd appreciate it," Daniel said calmly, "if you kept your voice down. My daughter's trying to talk." The cafe seemed to hold its breath. The bully blinked, surprised. Then he laughed again, louder than before. "Oh wow, he speaks. Listen to this guy, polite too. What are you gonna do if I don't?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded napkin, gently wiping a smudge of chocolate from Lily's cheek. His movements were slow, deliberate. Controlled. "I'm going to finish my coffee," he said, "and take my daughter home." Something about the way he said it, quiet, final, made one of the bully's friends shift uncomfortably. But the bully himself leaned back, puffing up. "Nah," he said. "I think you need to learn some respect first." That was when the bully stood. He didn't shove Daniel. He didn't touch Lily. He just loomed, invading space, trying to assert dominance the only way he knew how, through intimidation, and that was his mistake. Daniel stood too. Not abruptly. Not aggressively. Just enough to close the distance and place himself between the bully and Lily. His posture changed. The slouch vanished. His shoulders squared. His feet planted at a perfect angle, weight evenly distributed. Anyone who knew would have recognized it instantly, but no one in that cafe knew, except maybe the older man in the corner, who had gone very still. "You should sit down," Daniel said. The bully smirked. "Or what?" Daniel's eyes never left his. "Or this ends badly for you." There was no threat in his voice. No bravado. Just certainty. The bully laughed again, but this time it was forced. He reached out, poking Daniel's chest with one finger. That finger never landed. In one fluid motion, too fast to follow, Daniel trapped the bully's wrist, twisted, and stepped in. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. It was efficient. A controlled application of leverage and balance that sent the bully stumbling backward, crashing into a chair. Gasps rippled through the cafe. Daniel released him immediately and took a step back, hands open, palms visible. "I told you," he said evenly. The bully scrambled to his feet, rage replacing mockery. He lunged. Daniel moved. It was like watching a switch flip. He pivoted, guided the bully's momentum, and dropped him to the floor with a dull thud. No punches. No wasted motion. Just precision. The bully groaned, winded and humiliated. Silence swallowed the room. Daniel didn't press the advantage. He didn't gloat. He simply stepped away, picked up his jacket, and turned to Lily. "Time to go, sweetheart," he said gently. She nodded, eyes wide, but calm. She trusted him completely. As they walked toward the door, the bully's friends didn't move. No one did. The barista stared, mouth slightly open. The older man in the corner gave Daniel a subtle nod, one professional to another. Outside, the cool air hit Daniel's face. His hands trembled slightly now, the adrenaline fading. Lily slipped her hand into his. "Daddy," she said quietly, "you moved like a superhero." Daniel smiled, kneeling to her level. "No, kiddo," he said softly. "I just know when to stand up." They walked home together, leaving behind a cafe full of people who would talk about that moment for years. Not because of the fight, but because of what it revealed, that strength doesn't always shout, that dignity doesn't need approval, and that sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is protect what matters without losing who they are. Daniel had faced enemies trained for war. But that day, his greatest victory wasn't on a battlefield or in a cafe. It was in showing his daughter that kindness and strength can live in the same heart, and that bullies only win when good people forget how powerful they truly are.